to this second SPOC webinar, Let's Talk Palm Oil, Meet the Experts. For this second webinar, we have invited Ms. Maharti Riana of Satelligence Indonesia. Welcome, Arti. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Marika. Thank you for having me here today.
Over the past 10 years, Arti has mainly worked in the agricultural sector. She worked for 5 years at Sinar Mas, Agribusiness and Food, a big palm oil company based in Indonesia, where she handled the engagement with their partners on the implementation of the no deforestation, no peat, no exploitation policy and the orang-utans conservation program. More recently, she held a position as the agricultural officer at the ASEAN Secretariat, where she supported the development and implementation of regional agricultural policies for the 10 ASEAN member states. For the past years, she has become Satelligence boots on the ground in Indonesia, managing Satelligence client relations in Southeast Asia region from their Jakarta office. Arti, I'm so thrilled to have you. I think it's so important that we look at this palm oil issue not only from a European perspective, but also from a more local perspective. And today I hope to learn a lot more from you on that exactly. This webinar series is hosted by the Sustainable Palm Oil Choice Initiative that is set up to create more sustainable palm oil value chains in Europe, but also globally, and contribute to a more balanced debate about palm oil and palm oil consumption in Europe. The operation is done by Solidaridad, one of the members of the SPOC initiative. My name is Marieke Leegwater. I started working in the palm oil sector in 2002, first also in the industry, and that was the time when the discussions around palm oil and the rainforest started. And while I started as a legal expert, my work became gradually more and more around sustainability. In 2012, I joined Solidaridad to further work on sustainable palm oil production. And it was there that I was allowed quite some time in the field with both producers and companies, and got to learn really firsthand that palm oil, in my perspective, itself is not the problem, but rather the way it is produced. I'm honored to lead this webinar series. I see more and more anti-palm communication in Europe, and I think this is not helping us to solve the issues. So I hope these webinars will contribute to develop and deepen the understanding about the issues, and also with that bring solutions closer. So today, I'm actually quite excited to tell you we have 150 registrations for this webinar. So we will mute you to keep some order. Questions can be typed in the Q&A box, and my colleague Oma will pick them up. For technical issues, you can contact support, and there are my technical colleagues, among others, Linda. And I will start with about 5 to 7 questions first, and then we'll have the questions from you. So once again, welcome, Arti, and I suggest we dig right in. Arti, can you tell me a little bit more about your perspective on the role of palm oil in deforestation in Indonesia?
Well, first of all, I think to answer this question, we all should understand the definition of forest and deforestation itself in Indonesia. So forest is defined as an area which stretches over than 0.25 hectares with trees that height more than 5 meters on their mature age and a canopy cover more than 30%. While I think this definition is quite different from FAO, which define forest as an area which stretch 0.5 hectare with the canopy covers more than 10%, and it is filled with trees that height 5 meters on their mature tree age. So therefore, based on the definition of forest by Indonesia, Indonesia itself has a land area of 188 million hectares, of which 120.6 million hectares is legally designated forest area, and 67.4 million hectares as a legally designated non-forest area. At the same time, can we move to the next slide? Yes, Indonesia itself, the deforestation, based on the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, defined deforestation as a permanent change from a forest area into a non-forest area due to human activity. And well, for the FAO definition, deforestation is a forest conversion into other land use or long-term reduction of tree canopy cover below the 10% threshold. The difference in here is, I think it's in the permanent change. In Indonesia, the permanent word is used because mostly forest area that is cleared does not go back into forest. So how does this relate to the issues of palm oil and the deforestation in Indonesia? In my opinion, is like, if you ask me whether palm oil is the main reason of deforestation in Indonesia, I would clearly say the answer is no, because if we want to talk about deforestation and palm oil, we need to go back in time because as we all know, Indonesia is a developing country. In the 1960s, our economy relies heavily in the wood export. So many palm oil plantations were developed on lands cleared before 1973, and it is mainly in the degraded lands. So could you please go on to the next slide? Yeah, and according to the 2019 paper by Austin, he said, it is a research that say that there's an expansion from palm oil plantation into the forest area is peaked in 2019, converting nearly 300,000 hectares and has since steadily dropped to 50,000 hectares in 2016. At the same time, in 2017, CIRAC published a research that in the period of 1990 to 2008, 25 million of hectares forests were lost. However, based on the research, 7.5...
Well, I'm going to stop you there. These are a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
So you're telling me on the slide here that there's 25 million hectares of forest loss in Indonesia from 1990 to 2008.
Yeah.
And 3 million hectares of that is due to palm oil.
Based on the research, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we could see that palm oil is definitely not the main reason of deforestation here in Indonesia. At the same time...
So how is that now? Because 2008 is already 12 years ago.
Yes, well, we did our own analysis of tree cover loss in Indonesia from 2017 until 2000. We see that there's a decline of deforestation, that the deforestation is declining over years. And then what's important is we see a decline of deforestation inside of palm oil concession, which means that the growers and traders are doing a much better job. And then we believe that now the focus of deforestation is outside of the concession. And then we see also in Aceh, we did an analysis in Aceh that we see that outside of planted area replanting, not that much deforestation is going on. So, well, with satellite monitoring, we can see that there's a lot of improvement happening in the palm oil sector. And then we could prove where nothing is going on. I think with our system, we can help buyers and importers to get assurance. And I think we could also help the whole sector in this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marika.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm still kind of struggling with the amount of data that was just shared.
Yeah.
Do you want to, maybe I put you on the spot a little bit. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about you and yourself?
Oh, okay. So I'm based in Jakarta. I am Satelligence boots on the ground in Jakarta office, managing Satelligence client relation for the Southeast Asia region from Jakarta office. I mainly work in the agriculture sector. I started working at Cinemas Agribusiness and Food. I was there for almost 5 years. And then I handle a lot of implementation of the NDPE policy, including the orangutan conservation program and also the sustainability reporting. And after that, I moved to the ASEAN Secretariat, and which I there work as an agriculture officer, supporting and facilitating the development and implementation of regional agriculture policies for the 10 ASEAN member states. So yeah, that's a little background about myself.
Thank you. That's an impressive career. So can you tell me a little bit more about satellite monitoring and how does it work and how does it help?
Yeah, well, in Satelligence, we combine several satellite data. We also mix with artificial intelligence, and also we have local expertise and also extensive years in experience in helping our clients, ranging from the growers to the traders, to the FMCG, to the NGOs and financial institution that is working in mostly in the palm oil industry here in Indonesia, in monitoring deforestation, in hope for a more sustainable, transparent, and also independent verified agriculture production. So what we are doing here in Satelligence is we develop an alert, a prioritized alert of confirmed change into actionable alerts. It means that if something is cleared in the primary forest or in the peatland area or in an area that is requested by our clients, we will inform our clients, and then they will take a look at, and then they will see on the ground what's happening. So that's what we do actually.
So what are you learning from these alerts? Do they happen often?
We shared our, well, it depends on the area of area where our clients work at. And then this year we see a decline of alerts happening compared to last year and the previous year before. And then like we mentioned before, we see that a lot of alerts happens outside of the concession area. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen in the concession area. There's still several alerts that happens inside of the concession, but a lot of our alerts also happens outside of the concession. It means that first of all, we see that there's a growing numbers of the growers and the traders. They want to be on top of their game. They want to be the first one to know what's happening on their concession area. They want to be the first one to happen in their production area. And what's more important is they want to be the first one to know what is happening in their supply chain area. That is actually what is interesting from the satellite monitoring and how we help our clients to, to tackle the issue that in the deforestation itself.
So do you feel that the traders are improving their performance with respect to monitoring of deforestation in the palm oil value chain?
Yes, I could say that like that, because when I first started working in the agriculture sector, I mean, like it's 10 years ago. During those time, I think the companies are starting to comply to the, to the certification. They want to certify all of their concession area. But now we see that a lot of the growers, the traders, they want to be what's called more than compliance. They want to be on top of the compliance rather than they want to be more rather than certification. They want to prove that they are on top of their game. They have a more improved policy on sustainable palm oil production. By having us to monitor their area, it means that they're serious in handling issue that's going on, this deforestation issue in their production area, also in their supply chain area.
So would you say, if I try to, let's say I wasn't really sure if I got your answer on the first question right,
yeah.
But would I say it right if I would, let's say, do the improved trader performance help to drive down in deforestation for palm oil in Indonesia? Would you say that?
Well, it's a number of, I think it's a number of factors. First of all, we see that there's a permanent moratorium from the government, from the Indonesia government, that they cannot convert forests into palm oil or agriculture production. And second of all is the increase of standard from the buyers, which to monitor, not like, for instance, the NDPE policy that I mentioned before. So, and the third is I believe the growers and the traders, they want to be the best of it, and then they want to produce more sustainable palm oil, because it's a supply and it's a demand and supply. They want to supply more sustainable palm oil production based on the request of their buyers. So I think it's a lot of different factors compiled into one.
Thank you. Okay, so can you tell me a little bit more about satellite monitoring and how does that work?
Okay, can we go to the next slide for this? Yeah, this is it. So in Satelligence, we combine three main sources. The first one is open satellite data. We have from NASA and Copernicus EU program, which is the Landsat and Sentinel. These satellites cover the world and have high resolution of 10 meters. And also we have radar data that we can see through clouds. That is actually very important here in Indonesia and in Malaysia, because usually it's rather cloudy. So with radar system, we can see through the clouds. That's why we can give our alerts in a more updated, timely manner. And
is that the satellite data or the GIS data?
That is the satellite data. And
okay.
Yeah, and then also we combine our satellite data with our GIS data. And then the latest one, we also combine it with our industry supply data, which about supply chain and concession, which mostly shared by our clients and openly available data that we can use to give our clients the best information.
So with this data, you kind of combine what is happening, what you see happening from the satellites, from the sky, with maps that are based on the ground with supply chain. And so what kind of trends do you get from that? Do you see any trends from this data?
I believe that we see a lot of, it's very different, different places, different trends, but then we see that a lot of small encroachment is happening as well, especially in the area, in the landscape area. We see that, we see a number of small encroachment is happening, and then we see that there's a decline of conversion in consent area, and then that's the two trends that we are seeing in the past 3 years with our data.
I see a lot of questions coming in from the chat. I'm quite excited. I want to finish my last question. Like I hear you say encroachment is increasing. What would your take be on, let's say in Europe, there's a lot of controversy, you may say, around, let's say, should European buyers continue to buy palm oil, or is it better to boycott palm oil to limit deforestation? Or should they buy sustainable palm oil because that improves the matters? What is your take on this? How can European buyers play a role?
Every buyer plays a very big role in. So my suggestion is for everyone is to read more about palm oil. Don't boycott the crop because it's not the solutive answer, but rather you need to educate yourself better in this issue and to support the sustainable palm oil production as well, and buy products that have the sustainable oil production.
Oh, I think that, well, that's a nice, for this audience, I think they are educating themselves by
Sorry.
Actually, that's the compliment probably.
Yeah.
So in your perspective, all the initiatives that are there to create more sustainable palm oil production are working and need to be stimulated. And you think about maybe Roundtable Sustainable Palm Oil, but also the Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil.
Yeah.
Maybe then the final question from my side, there's also this moratorium initiative. How do you feel about that? Is that working?
Yeah, we can see that it's, well, based on our analysis, we have our clients to have an analysis on how moratorium is impacting the progress of agriculture expansion in Papua. Based on this moratorium, we can see that there are around 200,000 of forests that cannot be converted into the agriculture production. So, and then at the same time, we see that area based on our SPO standard, which is the HCF and HCS, they could save for 50,000 of hectares. So it means that the moratorium is very impactful. We could see that is actually saving the forest. And then if we could see a lot of research showing, we could see the decline of the deforestation happening in the past several years, starting when the moratorium is issued by the president.
Wow, that sounds hopeful. Thank you for sharing that.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully. Let's see. Yeah. I'm going to look at the questions. And there are quite some technical questions, so please be prepared. I hope we can answer them. I think here, the first question is slide 2. Which satellites that your team uses for such analysis? Is it Landsat or higher resolution image?
Okay, so we use a combination of satellite image. We use Landsat, of course, because we want to see historical analysis, and then also we use Sentinel-1, and then we also use Sentinel-2 for the radar one, so we could see through the clouds. That is very important by combining all of the satellite image. That's why we can give our clients the most updated alerts every 2 weeks.
Okay, and then I think related questions. What is the difference between your alert and the GLAD alert? What is the GLAD alert?
Yeah, the GLAD alert is actually, based on my understanding, they provide tree cover loss information. So meaning that they don't differentiate between the replanting one and the deforestation itself. So they give all the information on tree cover losses. That's one. And the second, in my understanding, is that they gave information, I think every one month's information. That's the difference between us, I think, with the GLAD alert.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and GLAD, sorry, just to add, GLAD alerts are based on optical Landsat imagery. GLAD is actually a fantastic global product, but then it cannot see through clouds like we can with radar. Hence, adding radar makes alert much more timely and more accurate.
Here I have a question from Bart van Assen. Can Google Earth historical images be used for the analysis of deforestation?
Well, in Satellite, we use the Landsat historical image. So we don't really use the Google Earth historical image.
Okay, thank you. So another one, what will be RT's advice for a company newly starting to monitoring satellite images? Are there any tools that are recommended?
For the tools, for starter, there's information of the tree cover losses that are happening globally. And then the second advice would be, let's have a discussion with Sattelligence. We can help you to monitor your company conservation production and also your supply chain. Yeah. And then a lot of yeah.
Okay, so another question is, that's good to hear that the moratorium is effective, but we still hear that there are expansions in Papua by uncertified companies. Can you comment on this? This question is from Prema Mogan.
Ooh, wow. Yes, of course. I mean, like, there's still homework to do in the sustainable palm oil production. Um, a multi-stakeholder approach is needed. I mean, like, the government is regulating their moratorium, but also at the same time, for the growers, for the traders, they need to be aware on those moratorium, and then they need to comply on the set of regulation and then on the certification issue. Um, well, I believe it's the job of the multi-stakeholder. It's not only for the government. I think it's also coming from the civil society to highlight this issue and then to guide this process on this so-called deforestation that's happening in Papua by this non-certified company. And then to have, I think what's more important is that the big players play a very big role. I mean, like the growers, the big role, the big players, because they supply from other places. If they see that this uncertified company is one of their supplier, they need to engage it.
So, did I understand you correctly that you feel that yes, there is still expansion going on despite the moratorium in Papua?
Well, for this information, we need to look back at our own analysis. We still see a number of conversion, not only in Papua itself, but in other places. And then that's why, I mean, like, we help monitor and we help to provide those information to our clients.
So what would happen now if your clients, and your clients are the big palm oil traders, right?
Yeah, most of them.
Yeah. So if they would see this expansion in Papua and there would be alert, they would stop sourcing there. Is that how it would work?
No, I don't think so. Well, in my understanding, they will receive their alerts. They will have this discussion with their supplier, and they will have the technical discussion on what is happening, whether it's true, whether, you know, the alerts are, they will need to have the field verification together and to see whether it's actually happening or not. So I think that's what that's what they're doing with the alerts that we provide to them.
So what I get from you is that the scrutiny on what's happening is increasing tremendously these days. Is that true? Would you confirm that?
Yes, I could say that. I could say it like that. We have the government, we have the I mean, like, the palm oil sectors. The government are issuing a lot of new regulation. They are supporting this new ISPO, also on the permanent moratorium, and then also the increased standard from the buyers, because and the certification, and also the standard, and all of this initiative from this sector. I think palm oil is the most guided crops at the moment because they need to comply to a lot of different set of regulations. So my advice is for us to stay to help them with this process, and then to salute them, because there's a lot of changes in this industry. There's a lot of positivity in this last few years. I think we need to focus on that as well, and to guide them in this process as well.
Thank you. That's interesting to hear. I hope there are some industry players who can see this as a compliment. I have a question here from Lutfi Angara Atmaguita. I hope I say this right. And she says, wow, this is really interesting. How do you get your spatial data, especially vector data, to do analysis? Did you face any difficulties?
Well, we use our, that's actually because we have, this is actually, we discussed it, some of the information we got it from our clients, but then we also use the map that is issued by the Ministry of Forestry as well. And then we also, that's why we also see the openly available information on this issue, on this data, and that at the same time we have our own baseline to start with.
She says, because for me, I did get difficulties on the spatial data, for example, RTRW, urban planning.
Urban planning or
yeah,
urban land use plan.
For each regency forest area based of Ministry of Forestry. This is very detailed, probably. Maybe you should get in touch with each other.
Yeah, maybe Lutfi could email me and then we could discuss it for you.
I think that's a great idea. Let's say, okay, we go here. Which area do you recommend for us to monitor forest conversion to oil palm area related to the moratorium before and after? Sumatra, Borneo, Papua. I have to understand, I don't really follow this question.
I
you
also,
do?
No, because actually they need to answer that question by themselves. I mean, like it depends on the goals that they want to have the monitoring itself. So I cannot answer this for you. You should answer it based on your goal. What is the use of this monitoring itself?
Maybe the question is the moratorium effective? So where can you best see whether the moratorium would work?
Well, I mean, I believe that the moratorium is working across Indonesia. It's not only stopping in Sumatra, Kalimantan, or Papua. It's implemented in all our Indonesia. Yeah, we need to discuss this in details. Whether internet connection.
Okay, so here another question on the moratorium. Can you tell us if it was enacted for oil palm companies or also for smallholder growers?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's why I believe that we see trends and declining and deforestation inside of the concession. On the smallholders growers, I believe that the moratorium also complied to the smallholders growers. And then what's exciting is now that all of the smallholder growers need to have SPOC certified. They need to be certified as by Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil Certification. And in that sense, I believe that the government is also helping the smallholders in getting them certified. And then one of the main issue is usually the financial side, and then I believe that the government now will support the funding issue. So yeah, the moratorium is applied to all, whether it's the growers or the smallholders. It should be applied to all sector.
Thank you, that's clear.
Yeah.
So do you expect that the smallholders will be SPOC certified shortly, or what kind of view do you have on the timeline for that?
Well, the national action plan for this is from 2019 until 2014 in my 2024 in my understanding. So hopefully during that time range, there will be a lot of initiative to help the smallholders in getting them certified. So it's still in the process.
Yeah. Do you feel there are sufficient resources available for that?
For the funding, I believe there is a combination of support from the growers and then also from the local government itself, based on my understanding.
Thank you. So we go back to the technical stuff. There's some technical stuff. So this is a follow-up to Bart's questions. It's like a marathon interview for you, this. You do not use Google Earth historical images for analysis of deforestation. Does that mean you think Google Earth historical images are unreliable or insufficient to clearly detect deforestation?
Well, we kind of use the Landsat image because the Landsat can go back to 1984. So there's a lot of that could give us like 20 years back, more 30 years back. So we use that for our historical analysis. It's not that we don't think that Google Earth historical image are unreliable or insufficient to clearly detect deforestation. But however, because we rely on Landsat because they can go back until the 90s.
Thank you.
Why?
I understand that palm oil is now no longer the main driver of forest conversion.
Yeah.
Are traders and producers in other sectors also working with you? And which sectors are now the main drivers?
Well, yes. In Indonesia, our clients is mostly palm oil, but we see a rather increase of other sectors in having their area to be monitored as well. For instance, it's the rubber sector, and then also the coffee sector. And at the same time, because we don't monitor only Indonesia and Southeast Asia, but we are also in West Africa, and then in West Africa we mostly monitor the cocoa sector, and also in Latin America we monitor mostly the soy sector. Yeah.
Thank you.
America, I want to go back to the questions of the Google Earth. I just want to add that Google is great for reference. We use it to verify results from image analysis. However, Google Earth is not a monitoring tool. Google Earth imagery is not available everywhere and every time we need it, but we support using all tools available.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So here another question. What are the technical challenges faced in identifying land cover change attributed to smallholder palm oil?
Wow, that is a very technical questions.
Yeah.
We can. Well, the challenge is, based on my understanding, is identifying, because smallholder, it's kind of different between the big companies. They are relatively small and they're relatively scattered. It's not like they are in one landscape. So that is one of the changes, one of the challenges that we face in identifying smallholder palm oil. However, I believe that we have already by adding our machine learning, we already adapt to that challenge.
So you are able to kind of distinguish smaller palm oil and larger plantations, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Here also another one. Does the grower activities of deforestation and land clearing and the monitoring thereof include monitoring of independent smallholders in their supply base? I guess that's meant.
Yeah. Well, to answer this question is yes, because they will give us a set of their suppliers, and for instance, they will also give us the names of the area where they supply from the independent smallholders. So yes, it also include the monitoring the independent smallholders.
Oh wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and I see here a final question. It's from Nicole Manugas. Thanks, this is very interesting. Maharti, coming from different professional backgrounds, Asian, CNRMAS, intelligence, but still focusing on sustainability in agriculture, where do you see the most impact, or what is driving improvements most, you think?
Well, like I said before, it's a combination of a lot of efforts from the government, from the policy itself, and then of the buyers itself, the high standard that they want. And I see that those two combination helps us in defining and help us in implementing the practical of the sustainability in agriculture. So the combination of the government policy and the buyer standard, and also the increased knowledge of these growers and traders in the sustainable palm oil production, or whatever sustainable agriculture it is. I think that's how it increases sustainable agriculture in the whole sector in agriculture.
Thank you. I think that's a very nice closing question, to be honest. What I take from it is that you say, well, if I could kind of round off and summarize the initiatives by the government and increased initiatives by traders really increase the visibility of what's happening, and buyers can stimulate that by buying sustainable palm products and making sure there's the appropriate attention for it. Right? Yeah. Wow, that's very hopeful. So I think with this, I'm going to round off this webinar, the second SPOC webinar. I saw that we had about 100 participants, so that's really a nice turnout. I hope everybody found it interesting. Maybe I can use this final moment to also announce the next webinar that will be held on Monday, 23 November. It's with Dr. Martin Keen. He's from the University of Göttingen, and he recently wrote a paper on where he puts a lot of the recent research on palm oil together. So I think he will also be an interesting speaker to learn from what's happening in the palm oil space. So I hope we can have an interesting webinar on that also. Well, more information about the Sustainable Palm Oil Choice Initiative and what's happening there can be found on our website. Also, the recording of this webinar will be made available there. Surely you can follow SPOC on LinkedIn as well. That will be appreciated, and you can like us sometimes. So with that, I would really like to thank Artie. I really enjoyed having your voice here at this table. Thank you. And thank you, the audience and the participants for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then I will close this webinar. Oh, sorry.
You can always email me.
Ah, thank you. We should have put your email on the slide here.
Yeah. If there's any more questions to be you need us to answer, special technical matters, we can always email me at rihanna@satelligence.com.
Okay, perfect. Is that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's right there. So you can take a picture, but we'll also send this for sure. Yeah. Thanks, Artie, and thanks everybody, and hope to see you next time.